You traveled with President Nixon in 1972 to China. Why does President Nixon go to China?
Nixon thought he needed help getting out of Vietnam, and the Chinese might help because a lot of the material going into North Vietnam came by Chinese railroad. Secondly, China and Russia came almost close to war up on the northern border of China, southern border of Siberia, in 1969. Nixon said, look, we're in trouble in the United States. We've got a divided country. It wants to get out of the war. We've got two major enemies, two great enemies, Soviet Union and Red China. And they're at odds with each other. Why should we deny ourselves access with the weaker of the two then, against and leave it to the stronger of the two? Why not form our own lines and work a three-way system to help us in our diplomacy? And I think, as I point out in the book, I found also memos back in my files which showed that Nixon was thinking of this China trip back in 1967. In 1968, for example, early, when Rockefeller was beginning to run, Nixon had heard that Rockefeller was talking about recognizing Red China. And he said, run that down for me and get the exact quote he said. And what I'm sure we was looking in later, Nixon was thinking, uh-oh, I don't want Rocky to step out in front with what I've got as the great idea for how I'm going to deal with the Cold War. Eddie Cox came to me down at this 100th anniversary of Richard Nixon's birthday a year ago, where I spoke. And he came up to me and said, Pat, Richard Nixon was thinking of going to China back in '68 because right around the New Hampshire primary, where Nixon had said something like, I will end the war and win the peace, and he was attacked for a secret plan. Eddie, who was dating Tricia, went up to him in the apartment and said, Mr. Vice President, how do you propose to end the war? And Nixon told him, I will go to Moscow and I will go to Peking. Yeah. And he was startled, and he had never revealed it, so we have it right there in the book.
Now, when you first learned of Watergate, what did you think?
What did I think? Well, let me tell you how I first learned of it.